He broadcast a game from the center field bleachers. He was a Bud man. He wanted to be out there with the Bud people at Wrigley Field. But he, as you know, when he broadcast from behind home plate, a lot of times he didn't see particularly well, and now he's out there in center field. So he's announcing the game. He says, swing and a miss. He struck him. No, it's a line drive to third, and it's caught. And then Steve Stone, his partner, chimed in and said, no, Harry, that was strike three. And then the catcher threw the ball down to third after the strike zone. And my favorite for Harry, proving that he could say anything and get away with it, and we sometimes try to push the envelope on our telecast. Cold day early in the season in Wrigley Field. I'm sure you've had some of these here in Buffalo during football or baseball season if you go outdoors. And they showed the young couple at Wrigley Field under the blanket, not many people around them, freezing cold day. They're trying to stay warm, and they're quite affectionate. And Harry said, and I wrote this down to make sure I get it right, they're playing the old ballpark kissing game. He kisses her on the strikes, and she kisses him. All right, we'll leave it for later on. I don't want to have to go see Father Pat for confession when we're done. Although it might be too late for that, I think, going the way. Is this still going to be on Buffalo Vision, whatever this is? We can edit that out. It is great to see so many people here today, in all seriousness, excited about college football. Particularly, I think everywhere around the country, folks are excited about the advent of the college football season, but particularly true in parts of the country where they don't have professional football, like in Western New York. No. But the enthusiasm level here is palpable. I've spoken at a number of these kinds of events over the years. At the end of last season, I spoke at a year-end banquet for a team that didn't do particularly well. There were very few people there, a lot of lethargy in the room, and I was sitting next to the coach, who was nowhere near as charismatic or leading his program in the direction such as Turner is. And I said to the coach, what's wrong here? What's wrong with the group? What's wrong with the program? Is it ignorance or apathy? And the coach looked at me and said, I don't know and I don't care. So while we were sitting there, one of his players came up and the coach said, how you doing in the classroom this semester? And the player said, not very well, coach. Right now I have 4 Fs and a D. And the coach said, well, I think you're spending too much time on one subject. So obviously that's not the case here at the University of Buffalo. I want to thank my friend Paul Vecchio. There are a lot of unsung heroes in college athletic programs. Sports information directors are at the top of that list. Particularly helpful to folks like me as we go around trying to prepare for games, providing us with information about the players and the coaches and the school. And Paul does a tremendous job. In all sincerity, I want to say that. And he's had a good day today because he had difficulty on the trip here this morning. He was driving here with his lovely wife, Dawn, and they got pulled over. And he said, hey, let me take care of this. I'm Paul Vecchio, sports information director. I have a radio show here in town. I'm kind of a celebrity now with the success of the team. I'll talk to the officer. So he rolls down the window and asks the officer, why'd you pull me over? And the gentleman says, so you were speeding. I said, no, I was carefully observing the speed limit as I always do. And with that, his wife leaned over and said, no, you weren't, honey. You were going at least 10 miles per hour with the speed limit. I've been telling you to slow down for miles. Paul looked at Dawn. And the officer said, I'm also going to have to cite you for not having your seatbelt on. And he said, well, I had it on, but I knew you were going to ask me for my license and registration, so I took it off so I could reach into the glove compartment. And again, Mrs. Vecchio stepped in and said, that's not true. I've been reminding you for miles it's important to wear your seatbelt. So with that, Paul looked at the missus and said, would you please shut up? And the officer looked in the window and said, ma'am, does your husband always speak to you like that? And she said, only when he's been drinking. So we congratulate you for overcoming that. Ward would like to speak with you later, actually, if you want to know something about bring your playbook and your keys. This is an exciting time. It's palpable as I stand here, and it was palpable as I stood in Detroit toward the end of the last football season, being around this football program. And it's been exciting for me to see as somebody who was neutral coming in and is now a real fan of what all of you are doing together here. First, I want to congratulate everybody who was involved with last season, the MAC East title, the amazing performance in the championship win over Ball State that I was privileged to call, the first bowl season. It was a great season, but I think the message has been delivered from Ward and from Turner and from the players already. It wasn't a fluke. You know, that you guys have been spending the last few years, and women, building a foundation that's now in place. So I look at the season of last year as a starting point, really, a place to build from. And as I said, it wasn't a fluke. Turner mentioned some of the stats, and I kept my chart and notes from the game last year. You know, all the earmarks of a good, well-coached football team. Plus 12 in turnover margin coming into that game, 47% success on third downs. The one that jumped out at me, 17 out of 23 heading into that game, and that was with that game and the bowl game to play, on fourth down. That's 74%. For those of us who went to Syracuse, required a calculator and some fingers. But the 74%. But the number, which was fifth in the country, by the way. But what it also said to me is 23 times they went for it on fourth down. You know, it's one thing for a coach to talk about his belief in his team, his belief in himself and his staff and what he's doing, but I think people buy into it a lot more when they see it tangibly. And 23 attempts on fourth down is an astounding number for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And I think it's one of the things that impresses all of us about Turner. He doesn't just say things, he believes them, he practices them in his own life, and it's a big reason why the team is the success that it is, and I believe will continue to be. 60 touchdown plays last year of 50 yards or more, so they're playing an exciting brand of football. That was tied for fourth in the country. And Turner mentioned coming into the Ball State game, they had forced 18 fumbles in the previous 6 games. That's great, tenacious defense, the kind that any school wants to play. Most of all, in order to do that, you have to have outstanding coaches and players all over the field, and UB does. There's no question. It wasn't a fluke. I hope you people know that. I hope you're buying into it, because I certainly have. But there are other people around the country who may not know the full story yet. You know, you're just starting to get on national TV. You're just starting to get the story of your football program and your community and this university exposed. I didn't know when I first went to broadcast the game last year what a good academic institution this was. The only person I'd ever heard talk about was Mike Bray, who's the Notre Dame basketball coach and the proud father of Kyle Bray, a tight end and excellent special teams player for your football team. And I thought Mike might be the typical parent bragging about the academic quality of the school that his child was attending and perhaps overstating it a bit. But then as I got closer to the game and I started to do the research about the academic side, because part of our job when we do games like that with schools that don't get on national TV very much is to try to give people a sense of the whole package, the university, the community, the history, the tradition. And as I researched the kind of academic program you have, it is certainly the kind of place you can all be proud of and can work hand in hand with the athletic program to raise the whole profile of the university. There's no guarantee that the success is going to continue, as you know. 15 starters back is a great start in that direction. A lot of times, probably even here in years gone by, 15 starters back probably wasn't such good news. But when they're talented and when you have 5 of them who are all conference players coming back, it does bode well for what's to come. So the expectations are high, and they should be. But to me, excellence is really only achieved when it is sustained. And Rick Pitino wrote a book called Success is a Choice. And I think that's what I've seen happen here at this university as I've done the research. There is a great deal of importance attached to college football and what it can do for a university and what it does for a university's identity. I was talking to Gene DiFilippo the other day. He's the outstanding athletic director at Boston College, who's been at a lot of different schools. And he said almost every great academic institution that you can think of has a very important tie to college football, dating back to Harvard and Yale, which were among the very first schools, Princeton to play college football in our country. Harvard was the first one to have a stadium. Georgetown and Fordham back in the old days. Stanford has a rich football tradition, is one of the great academic institutions in this country. And I think a lot of us fully believe, and it's true, that Notre Dame is a great institution, but it was really football that put it on the map.